So in Bereshit, in Genesis 34, Jacob and his family settle near Shechem. Jacob comes back to live in a land as God promised him he would bring him safely. And everything seems well, and Dinah, she's socializing with the local girls of Shechem. There's a local, Shechem the Hivite, a town's nobleman. The story is that he took advantage of her, and he violated her. And Torah says that he was drawn to her, so desperately wanted to marry her. That's what we're told. So, as this happened, he asked his father to go to Jacob and speak to Jacob about Dinah, how to resolve the situation, because he wanted her for his wife. Now, Jacob, at this point, knew what happened, but he restrained himself, the Torah says, and he agreed to hear Hamor and his words. And we know that Jacob's sons were not there, not at the house yet. They were out working in the fields. And Hamor made his request to Jacob. And then his sons returned from the pastures, and they learned about Dinah. And you can imagine what happened. Genesis 34:7 says, "V'yatatzavu anashim v'yatchar lachem me'od." And they were hurt and became very angry. You see, in Hebrew, word atzav means to be hurt, as in being cut. That's how they felt. They felt that they were cut because of what happened to their sister. And the second verb that is in this short phrase, chara, it means to become hot. Hot as in temperature, like inflamed. They were cut, and they were so angry, they were inflamed. Dinah's brothers reacted like most brothers would react in this kind of situation. Just think about yourself. How would you feel if this is something that you've been told happened with your family member? With your little sister, perhaps. You'd probably feel the same way. So they were angry. They were furious. And now Shechem came, and he was offering to pay a generous and even an unreasonable bride price for Dinah. Just ask me, name the number. He's a wealthy man. To a modern Westerner, as we read the story, it merely demonstrates the primitive, backwards ways of ancient Middle Eastern people. That's kind of what it looks on the surface. But if you look deeper and you understand the culture, according to the ways of the East, Hamor and Shechem's behavior is very dishonorable. They're not doing something good here by coming and offering a bride price and say, hey, we'll make this right. He'll marry this girl. In fact, we will give you gifts and money and all these things to make sure that this union is proper. Yes, people paid bride prices in the East, but not this way. It was not an offer of peace. What I want you to realize is that as they came to Jacob's dwelling, it was an act of aggression. What Torah does not tell us, and you have to read between the lines, it doesn't tell us this explicitly, but I suspect that Dinah was held in Shechem's house. She did not come home. No one was talking to her, and no one was asking her if she wanted to be with this Canaanite noble. She was violated, and now she was held in captivity. And Shechem was planning to keep her for himself no matter what, merely just looking to pay the right price to Jacob, to just kind of make these things legitimate. Now, Jacob, as you can imagine, he was in a very difficult situation. Accepting a bride price would mean forcing Dinah to marry Shechem, her abuser. And that was not the way of Israelites. Moreover, in verse 9, Hamor presented his offer for Jacob's family to actually intermarry with his entire clan, not just Dinah. And that meant usually that the smaller clan will be absorbed by the larger one. And Dinah's marriage would be the very first step in forging this arrangement. So guess what? This is only the beginning. Hopefully now you understand why I'm saying this is an offer of aggression and not of peace. Jacob was in a very difficult position. On one hand, he would become complicit in the violation of his own daughter, if that's what he went for. And on the other hand, he would set up his entire family for assimilation into the Canaanite community. And that is a destiny which is completely opposite of the promises that God made to his forefathers. That is what's in that offer. That's the deal on the table. Take it or leave it. So, as we read the Torah, it says, Jacob's sons answered. And Torah says, B'mirma. They answered in deceit. That's what Torah says in verse 13. You shouldn't be surprised, because these are Jacob's sons. These are Laban's grandsons, remember? Okay? So they said they would agree if Hamor's entire clan could become circumcised, which is a very ironic twist versus the offer they were given. Remember? They were told, oh, let's just intermarry, become one big happy family. So they're saying, no, we're not going to agree until you become like us. And this is the way in which you must become like us. All the men have to be circumcised. And, of course, the community weighed this option, and they decided to go for it because the benefit of absorbing Jacob's family and all his flocks, and you have read just in the Torah how many animals he had and how much God has blessed him. So this was a sizable community that they would be absorbing into their own clan. They decided, let's go for it. And as we read the story, on the third day, all the men were recovering from their procedure. Jacob and his sons took their swords and killed all the men of that town. It's a dark story, right? Not really a fun one to read. And there's very little good in it as I'm reading it. As I kept thinking about it, there's very little good in it. So what lessons can we take away for ourselves from this today, right now? The first lesson that I see is this. It's very simple. Don't accept offers of friendship from those who abuse and violate the weak. Don't accept such offers of friendship. Because people who violate others will eventually do the same to you. Beware of alliances and partnerships with the wicked. Be careful. Relationships built on pressure, on these subversive tactics, friendships built on dishonorable deeds that need to be somehow covered up or legitimized will not bring anything good to your life. Reject any offers that would force you to condone the behavior that you cannot endorse in good conscience. Stick up for the innocent against abusers. That's lesson number one for me. Lesson number two from this parsha is safeguard God's promises at all costs. You see, it would not be right for me to condone the actions of Jacob's son and the lies that they told. The violence that they perpetrated also is not something that we should probably imitate. We get this. We understand. I'm in no way suggesting that any of you should go and take up swords against your no-good neighbors right now. Just to be clear, in case you did not understand me. That's not the point of this story, and that's not the point I'm making. Deep inside, most of us crave peace. We disdain violence. We do not seek after war. We're sick of it. But we recognize that sometimes taking up a sword is absolutely necessary. So Jacob's brothers liberated Dinah with deception and with their swords because no peaceful possibility existed. Hivites were not willing to compromise in some other way, and if they did compromise with the Hivites, they would only be sabotaged later. So I say find most honorable ways to act that you can in your life, but protect and safeguard your ability to live out God's calling. You know what God has called you to. You know the things that he has placed upon your life. You know the path that he's set you on. So reject alliances that would lead you away from Hashem, lead you away from that path. Fight assimilation. Protect and safeguard God's covenant, and never jeopardize your family for the sake of a fictitious peace.